Hi there, Terry back again. Hope I find you well, and welcome to my latest video. Action and Superman comics from 1968. And due to the length the video will be, I'm doing this in two parts. So part 13, part 1. And we start with this 80-page giant with a Curt Swan cover, Superman 202. And as you can see, it's Tales of the Bizarro World. And these are reprinted mainly from Adventure Comics, which I don't own, but there are also two from Superman, which I do. And they are namely the Bizarro Invasion of Earth from 169 May 64 and Bizarro Meets Frankenstein's Monster. I added Monster for accuracy, or Tempest from Mars will be after me. And that's from 143 February 61. And then the stories from Adventure Comics. The Shame of the Bizarro Family from number 285. Bizarro's Amazing Buddies from number 289, Bizarro's Secret Identity from number 288, The Bizarro Perfect Crimes from 291, and Bizarro Creates a Monster, number 292. Next we have Superman 203, Curt Swan, George Klein and Gaspar Saladino with the cover. First we have Clark Kent's Biggest Day, written by Leo Dorfman, pencil and inks by Al Plastino. And while a magazine reporter is spending the day with him as an assignment, Clark avoids an assassination attempt by the Long Hair Gang and delivers them into the police. Then a story reprinted from 138 July 60, Superman's Black Magic, and that was covered in part 4 of my series. And lastly, the cover story, written by E. Nelson Bridwell, art by Pete Costanza, and When Superman Killed His Friends. He is exposed to red kryptonite, which gives him a prophetic dream, enabling him to capture a deadly organism that would have destroyed his friends. Action 358 next, covered by the brilliant Neal Adams. We find Superman guilty of homicide. Leo Dorfman writing, Curt Swan, George Klein with the art. Superman has been set up in an elaborate plot to end his career. And then we have a very confusing tale. Superboy has amnesia, gets taken to Argo City, where he meets young Kara, and then he forgets this due to some aliens. Well, I needed to read it again, as I know nothing other than being totally confused. And another stunning Neal Adams cover brings us Superman 204, February, cover date. 3 stories again. The Case of the Lethal Letters, obviously the cover story there. It's written by Cary Bates, pencils Ross Andru and Mike Esposito. Lorraine Lewis, a female scientist who had been in love with Superman but found herself blocked by his 3 LL sweethearts, lures him into a death trap by capturing said sweethearts, Laurie Lem Aris, Lana Lang and Lois Lane. And I hope I did a better job on Laurie's pronunciation this time, Grey Man. Then back to Action Comics, November 56, 222, The Duplicate Superman, written by Otto Binder, art by Al Plastino. Superman is split by a cobalt bomb's explosion into 2 duplicate Supermen. They differ, though, by 1 power, only having telescopic vision and the other only having X-ray. One unfortunately sacrifices himself by getting in the way of a giant kryptonite meteor that is heading to destroy Earth. And now I know where 69 years later they got the idea for Superman Ultimate #1. Nothing new under the sun. And then we lastly written by Cary Bates, pencil and inks by Al Plastino, The Fortress of Fear. A being from Pluto comes to Earth, possesses Superman's entire Fortress of Solitude and turns it against him. Then we have Action 359, covered by Neal Adams. The Case of the People Against Superman. Leo Dorfman writing, Curt Swan with the pencils, Peter Costanza inking. Part 2 of last issue's story. Superman goes on trial for the homicide of Ron Noble with an ambitious DA, Alonzo Kroll, wanting to nail him for the crime. And then we have The Super Initiation of Supergirl by Otto Binder and Kurt Schaffenberger. Supergirl teaches a lesson to a brutal bunch of members of Xi Pi Hi Phi sorority, and they've been bullying pledges for too long. Then we have Action 360, April 68, another 80-page giant. As you see, this is another all Supergirl issue, and all tales taken from Action Comics 278 to 280 and 283 to 285. All covered in 2 of my previous videos. Action 361, Neal Adams cover again. 21 issues after his supposed death, we have the resurrection of the Parasite in The Power of the Parasite, written by his creator, who sadly just recently died, Mr. Jim Shooter. Art by Al Plastino. An alien geographer reassembles the disintegrated atoms of the parasite, who saps his energy and life, so no good deed goes unpunished, it seems. Parasite then goes after Superman, only absorbing a bit of energy at a time, rather than making the same mistake he made before. And then Supergirl's out on a super date, written by Otto Binder, art Kurt Schaffenberger. She has an idea this boy is possibly from Krypton, but sadly that's not the case. But he isn't up to any good either. Superman 205, another Super Neal Adams cover. And the title on the cover says it all, The Man Who Destroyed Krypton. Otto Binder, writer, Al Plastino, artist. Superman releases Jaxa from the Phantom Zone so he can help him defeat this villain, Black Zero, who purports to have been the person who blew up Krypton. Jaxa swears on oath to the Colossus of Hadrad that he will not double-cross Superman if he lets him out. I assume this is like us swearing an oath to a deity we believe in. Action 362. Neal Adams with the cover again. Leo Dorfman writes The Head of Hate. Ross Andru and Mike Esposito with the art. This one has revenge and insanity and hypnotism and a ventriloquist. Where's Superman? Where is that murderer? Show him to me. I'll take him apart with my bare hands, said by Clark Kent. So you get the picture. Supergirl next in the 40th Century Outlaw. Otto Binder writes, Kurt Schaffenberger does the art. Supergirl gets tricked by Mr. Mxyzptlk, or at least a descendant of his. He has created the scenario she is a villain in the 40th century, and she needs to do the usual to correct things. Superman 206. Another Neal Adams cover. A new and old story in this one. The new one, written by Jim Shooter, art by Al Plastino. The cover tells you the story, other than the bit where, of course, Superman was framed. The old story from Superman 131, August 59, The Menace of Mr. Mxyzptlk. Jerry Coleman writing, Al Plastino did this one in part 3 of, or I did this one, I should say, in part 3 of this series. Action 363, May 68, Neal Adams with the cover. The Leper from Krypton. Written by Leo Dorfman, pencils by Ross Andru, inks by Mike Esposito. Lex Luthor gains access to the biolab in prison, because all prisons have biolabs. He develops Virus X, which has been irradiated with kryptonite. He passes a vial of it to Ventor, the ventriloquist from the previous issue, who still has Clark under hypnosis. He gives the vial to Clark for him to infect Superman. Clark accidentally spills some on his wrist. The infection causes him to snap out of his hypnotic state. He then recalls the tragic history of Virus X on Krypton, a virus that has no known cure. And the Supergirl story in this one is The Landmark Looters, written by Otto Binder, art by Kurt Schaffenberger. Supergirl investigates some mystery disappearances of monuments around the world. It turns out to be giant alien children from another dimension, using them as markers on a giant board game. Supergirl needs all her skill and wits to get the monuments back. With another lovely Neal Adams cover, Action 364, and this is part 2 of Virus X. The Untouchable of Metropolis, creators as part 1. Superman goes to the Daily Planet, where he says goodbye, and then has to flee Lois Lane. Criminals surrender the moment they see Superman, probably for the same reason. And as for the cover, the world's foremost doctors can't find a cure. Luther cons people out of $1 million with a faux cure, and the Phantom Zone criminals won't even let him in. Superman builds a funeral capsule that will send him to the Flambron, the hottest known sun in the universe. And Supergirl's story, The Kiss of Death. Very cheerful, this particular issue, isn't it? Also, Binder writes, Kurt Schaffenberger with the art. And this one is about 3 possible female criminals, a planet called Valere, an executioner called Dirkler, and undersea pirates. A very jolly tale. No, it's not. Right, well, that's part 1 done. I will make part 2, and that will hopefully be with you on Tuesday. But this is Friday. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, remember, please, thumbs up, subscribe if you wish to, and also comment. Comment's great. Thank you. Bye.